Hey, welcome to You Might Have Missed It. My name is Adam.
I'm Nathan.
And this week we've been missing Doctor Who so much that we've decided to get a little timey-wimey on our own with the podcast. We had a really long discussion. Before we started, we had a really long discussion about the new Avengers movie. Because I finally got a chance to see it on Friday, which was my birthday. So I went and saw the Avengers with my roommate. It was really great, and I was really excited about it. So we ended up talking about that for probably a good 20 or 30 minutes. And to avoid spoiling the movie for anyone who still hasn't seen it and wants to listen to the rest of the podcast, but doesn't really want to get spoiled on some of the cool stuff and twists that happen during the Avengers, we're putting it at the end, where our normal hilarious, in air quotes, after stuff will generally happen.
Basically it won't even be in the podcast. It will actually be after the end song.
Yeah. So if you want to hear our opinions about the Avengers and our favorite stuff and just, want to continue that conversation and get really excited with us, feel free to just keep on listening past the end song and you can get all of that. But if you want to avoid those spoilers, totally fine. We're separating it out and you don't have to listen to that. So
now on the other hand,
the rest of it you do, because there will be a quiz at the end.
There will be. Now on the other hand, you can't blame us for spoiling it. You have been warned significantly.
Yeah,
you will be warned again.
Now.
No excuses.
Yep, I will put another warning at the end. And then I will put another warning before we begin the spoilers. So, just so you are amply warned, the Avengers movie will be spoiled. And there will be certain moments that you will not be surprised by and you'll be sad about that. So if you haven't seen it yet, listen to the rest of this podcast, stop before the end, go watch it, come back, and then listen to the end part.
And be just as excited as...
Exactly, and join us in our excitement.
Yes.
Speaking of exciting, I hear that there is a really great game that's come out recently.
New game!
Candy Crush 2.
New game!
Amazing. It's match 4 based. They've really upped the ante on it.
I've never played a Candy Crush game. I don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
I know it's a match 3 game.
I know it's like Bejeweled, and we've had conversations about Bejeweled.
Exactly.
So
no, what is this game
Bejeweled.
that has you so excited?
Witcher 3. Man, awesome. Holy crap.
So I am not a fan of the Witcher series. Not in the sense that I don't like it, but in the sense that I know absolutely nothing about it. So,
it's a lot like Dragon Age.
Oh, okay. Then I hate it. No.
No,
paint me a picture. What is The Witcher?
It's a third-person adventure fantasy game. Basically, you are all 3 Witcher games follow Geralt, who is the Witcher. Basically, your character is a human that was taken, trained, mutated, and since he's been mutated, in order to be able to fight all the different spectral, supernatural shit that goes on all over the planet, him and the Witchers, which is there's actually a lot of them. Well, there's less in The Witcher 3 than there were in the beginning because they're kind of dying. They're kind of a dying breed kind of thing.
Okay.
But they are basically bred, mutated, and trained to be mercenaries.
The ultimate soldier against darkness?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, because they don't do anything without getting paid.
Okay, so the ultimate soldier for hire against darkness.
The ultimate soldier for hire against the supernatural. And that's basically it, that's all they do. They go out and, like a town will pay them to rid them of this ghost that's haunting, the well. And I'm not making that up. That is actually a job I did.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So
does a portion of your earnings have to go back to like the Witcher, like incorporated type of thing? Are they like paying for their training or?
No, because
is it student loans that they're paying off?
No, basically they're nomad. They're basically nomadic, and the original. I think this was all covered in The Witcher 1, but I didn't actually finish it. That whole system broke down. and does not exist anymore.
Oh, okay. And that's why the Witchers are dying off.
Exactly, because there aren't any more being made except for the last one. Not going to talk about it because spoilers. And it is a third-person adventure game, very fantasy, mature-oriented. I'm going to say this right now because if any of you are offended by sex scenes, don't buy this game. If you're offended by blood, don't buy this game.
If you're just offended by frank discussions of unfunded or underfunded educational platforms and the consequences thereof, don't buy this game.
I totally have it. But anyway, it starts off, you're actually trying to find a person because they're gone for reasons. I'm really trying not to spoil it because literally, like, this is the first 4 hours of the game. I
think we're fine with spoiling the first 4 hours of the game.
You're trying to find Yennefer because Ciri has gone missing, and if you find Yennefer, she can help you find Ciri. Basically, the first thing you do,
you've lost Ciri?
Ciri. I think that's her name.
So you can't ask Ciri to find Ciri.
So Ciri. Yennefer's hot. Ciri is basically like a daughter figure.
Okay.
Anyway, so you actually go to the first town you go to. You have a bunch of side quests and stuff like that, and you end up finding out that because you've actually tracked Yennefer all the way to this point, to this town.
Okay.
And then the trail basically goes cold. You find out, hey, this guy over at the garrison did run into a black-haired woman, and he probably knows where she's at. So you go to the garrison, and the guy's like, okay, yes, I do know who you're talking about. I do know where she is. You have to kill the griffin for me to tell you.
So it's that type of game. Okay. Your princess is another castle, and I'm not going to tell you that until you, tell you which other castle.
This guy is a bastard.
Okay.
And basically, like, you go, you build up all your stuff. There's a lot of preparation to it. Mm-hmm. Especially with something this big. You have to lure it out, and then basically, so you kill the griffin, blah, blah, blah. You bring the guy its head, and he's like, oh, yes, that's right. She's in the next town over.
Oh, okay.
And you're
so
like,
what you're saying is if I had kept walking, I could have avoided all of this.
Exactly. You say, you
suck.
fucking dick. You are an asshole. You fucking dick. And then
do you leave the town just double burning it the whole way out?
No. So you go back to the town because it's not just you, it's you and your mentor are going around.
Okay.
I mean, and he's not really your mentor anymore. He's just that old guy.
Well, right. I mean, he's still obviously had 2 other games to surpass him. And if you haven't done it by this point, then,
oh no, he's still
kind of lazy.
He's still pretty badass. I think.
Oh, sure. I mean, Obi-Wan was still pretty badass too,
exactly.
But he's old.
Exactly. But no, anyway, so you go back to the inn to get him. You're packing out. You're like, okay, we'll leave in the morning. You wake up the next morning and, oh, hey, guess who's here?
The asshole from the other town?
The chick you were looking for.
Oh, she just showed up.
She just shows up at the inn with like a few guards and is like, oh, hey, you need to come with me because we got a job to do. And
that seems rather anticlimactic to set up.
See, that's the thing. It's really, that's the intro. That really starts the game.
Okay.
Like, this entire town is damn near tutorial land.
Okay. So they're reintroducing you to The Witcher.
Exactly.
Kind of getting all of that set up. So it sounds like they do a pretty good job of that then.
Yeah. The thing is like you're almost going through tutorial land and you don't realize it. Like, I thought I was actually playing the game, but it was a tutorial land.
There you go.
And I was like, this is the most impressive tutorial land I have ever been in. And then you leave tutorial land and you realize I should have done a lot more side quests in tutorial land because these people are fucking huge and they hit really hard. But so
you're not doing every side quest that's presented to you?
I did most of them. And then I was like, okay, that one. Yeah.
This is RPG 101, son.
I know.
You talk to every NPC, you do every side quest they present to you, then you move on.
Yeah, well, I figured, there were only like 1 or 2 left, and I was like, that's not going to make that much of a bit of a difference. Apparently, those were quest chains.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, so don't be a dumbass, do all the quests. Or else
this is good advice in any RPG, right?
Yeah. or else you will be level 4 going up against the level 8. Mm-hmm. And it hurts. And the potions...
The goggles do not help.
No. Actually, there's a lot of prep that goes into like the big boss battles. Mm-hmm. And they will tell you. They will literally tell you, you need to prepare for this. Prepare for this. Don't forget to refill your potions. Don't forget this potion. Please, for the love of God, fucking do it. And if you don't, by the way, it's going to be the hardest fucking game you ever play.
And then you get to the boss and you realize you left the toilet seat up.
Yeah.
And you immediately die.
I didn't die. I didn't do all the potion stuff. But dodge roll is your friend. You end up like dodge rolling, going through all of your food just to beat a golem. And then you find out he's not the actual boss of the spot. So, but I did beat that guy again. Literally, it was a long ass fight because I was out of food. All I had were like the super potions that it's like you only get 3 of these.
Oh, okay.
If he hits you, you gonna die. So
it's Dark Souls light, is what you're saying.
It was pretty much Dark Souls light.
So, kind of as far as the game itself goes, very action adventure, or very action 3D action. RPG type of game.
Very
is what we're looking at here.
Yes.
And then is it, you mentioned you have like companions. Is it very much like Dragon Age in that way where you're like giving them commands and that sort of thing? Or are they pretty much like, AI independent?
Okay. The companion, like, so for example, the mentor guy that I was talking about, he hung out at the inn the entire fucking time while I was doing shit.
Right. Which is,
so he hung out.
He's old. He gets to do that.
He hung out at the inn and, was doing this job. Oh. Was basically he was basically gathering information and holding down the fort at the inn while I was going and doing my thing.
Right.
The sorceress chick is a witch that you're actually helping because she actually wants something that this elf had that's part of the main mission, and that's why she's with you.
Okay.
She's completely AI. But I mean, it's basically they're there temporarily, because as soon as like you get to the other town, dude figures out, oh god, all this shit is happening. I need to go back to our house, our castle, and batten down the hatches and prepare for a storm.
Oh, okay.
So he leaves and goes and does that for a very good reason. And then she's actually got her own life to live, basically, kind of thing going on. And then we'll see what happens next.
Cool. So it sounds exciting. Would you say, I'm assuming you're going to say that's not worth picking up at all. Probably just give this one a complete pass, correct?
Go get it now. Yeah, it's pretty much, it's Dragon Age again, all over again, stealing my time, basically making it so that I have to not play it.
Right.
Because if I do, I'm going to lose track of a day.
Awesome.
It is amazing. I love that game. It was great. And the crafting system and all that is actually really good too, but I'll wait until later. And there's a card game.
I've heard this. I've heard there is a card game in it.
And which
piqued my interest a little bit.
It's actually interesting.
I was reading an article somebody had wrote, and obviously the headline was very much clickbait. And it worked on me, obviously, because I clicked on it. Right. Which was it had the name of the card game from The Witcher, and they're like, is it better than Hearthstone? And,
God, no.
their stance on the whole thing was that it was.
Oh.
I don't really buy that. But the fact that you can even compare it to something like that tells me that it must be pretty good then.
It's very, it's very basic and dressed down. Basically you have 3 sections to each side. You have a melee, ranged, and a siege, sections. And basically what it is you have the different cards that, you put people in melee, you put people in ranged, you put people in siege, and it all basically adds up to a points total, and whoever points total at the end of it, wins. and it's a 2 out of 3 every time. And there are like cards that will change the area. So, for example, like rain. Like if there's a severe rain one, and that fucks up siege. Basically takes all of siege and drops them to 1.
Okay.
And then, there's one for range, there's one for melee, and it'll take, and that's basically, you can trick that. Basically what it is, you keep putting down cards until you think that what you have on the board can beat whatever your opponent can put down, and you pass it.
Okay. And
you pass and be like, I win, pass. And then if they they lay down whatever, and then they pass, and then whoever's points total is higher wins the round.
Okay.
And 2 out of 3.
Cool.
Yeah, there's a little more strategy to that because, I mean, I've gone points because you only have one starting hand for all 3 rounds.
Oh, wow. Okay, so you keep playing through the rounds.
Yeah. Like you have, like, this is your hand, and you play the cards. They go in the discard pile. Whatever's left over, that's your hand for round 2.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so that's kind of a unique way to go through that. Is that you don't start new with a new, basically restart the deck and then play another game. You keep playing through.
Right.
And you reset the health totals and the board state, I'm assuming.
Right, you reset the board state and the health total. Well, there's no health.
Okay, sorry.
It's 2 out of 3, and that's it. And then basically the attack totals.
Okay.
So like whatever the attack total is on one side versus the attack total on the other side, whoever's highest wins the round.
Okay. So it's a little bit kind of like a very complicated game of war.
Yeah, there's no drawing, except there are certain cards. Like there's, I have one it's a melee guy. He's like 6 power. Mm-hmm. And the way you play him, you don't play him on your side. You play him on the other side. So you put him on the other side's melee section, and you get to draw 2 cards.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Because card draw is pretty powerful in most games. So there's always got to be a way to balance it, which is either the cost of cards or some sort of drawback, and, giving your opponent essentially an extra card is an interesting mechanic to play that sort of card draw game.
Well, that's the only way to draw cards during that game.
Okay.
That's it. Like literally, you pull your hand, that's your hand for 3 rounds.
So you kind of have to plan ahead and really either hope that you force your opponent into overplaying the first round and then beat them the next 2 rounds, or just hope that your hand strength is enough that you can just power through both rounds.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, and you only get to draw, I think it's 8 cards. So
that's your hand is 8 cards.
You have 8 cards to play 3 rounds.
Oh, wow. What's the deck size?
30.
30. Okay. That's actually pretty, that's a pretty high, that puts a lot of, chance into the game.
Yeah.
When you only have 8 out of 30 chances to draw, kind of the hand you want or the cards you need type of thing. That's an interesting way to build a card game. I would be interested to see that if it's, standard enough that you wouldn't need, the game to handle calculations.
Oh, fuck no.
I think it would be interesting to see that as an actual physical card game.
You could easily do that.
Although I think it would have to be like pre-built decks or something like that, to really be more fun. But no, that could be an interesting.
Yeah, you could easily do that as a real card game because it's literally what is 6 + 5 + 3.
See, I love that I'm far more interested in the card game that's coming out of this. I'm like, so wait, fuck the rest of this game, this Combat Griffin, whatever. Tell me more about these cards.
This card game. Yeah.
Like if The Witcher 3 was just entirely a card game, I would be all over it.
Yeah, and you can collect, there's cards all over the place that you can collect, the rare ones and all that. You start off with a pretty good deck, to tell you the truth.
Oh, cool. Yeah, because I've seen card games fail in other games. Knights of the Old Republic, I believe, had a card game built into it, if I remember right.
Yeah.
And it was terrible.
Do you remember Triple Triad from Final Fantasy VIII?
I try not to.
Right.
But yeah, no, there's definitely some really bad card games that have popped up. So it sounds really cool that there's actually a decent one, and one where it would probably be like, I would just ignore the rest of the game and just play this card game all the time.
Well, apparently there are quests, like people that you can actually... I was talking to a buddy of mine who's put way more hours into this game than I have. Mm-hmm. And apparently there are quests where you can challenge somebody to a card game as opposed to doing this.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
Yeah. So like you can be like, yeah, well, I bet you I can beat you at the card game, and you give me that instead of having to go find one.
That's a really good way to, integrate into the world for sure.
Yeah. So
that's
yeah,
really
I mean, cool. if you actually did that would, if you actually spent the time to build up your cards and, create a great deck and, actually learn how to play the game and everything like that, that could actually benefit you in the overarching game.
That's really cool. That's a great way to make it feel less like a tacked on system and more like something that's actually part of the world.
Yeah, as opposed to just going around and being like, I'll bet you 5 gold I could beat you in this.
Yeah, or like, hey, I'll give you an item if you beat me, or I'll give you another card if you beat me. And it's like, nope, I'll move on. All right, well, that has been The Witcher 3. We're going to take a quick break and get a word from our sponsors, and we will be right back.
Coming this Sunday at the Octoberdome. It's Monster Truck Anarchy 6, featuring Gut Wrencher, Pip Slap, and Donkey Punch. They'll burn your shirt off. Also featuring Drag Race, Tug of War, the Dirt Bike Demolition Derby, and many, many annihilated station wagons. That's this Sunday at the Octoberdome. Don't miss the 5th annual Deep Fried Twinkie Cook-Off before the event. Brought to you by Larry's Discount Games Warehouse. It's definitely not cardboard.
Hey, we're back. So yeah, we talked about The Witcher a little bit earlier there. I have not really been playing video games this week, but I did finally kind of hit the end of my TV season. Mm-hmm. So stuff like Daredevil, which I know you've been playing The Witcher, so you probably haven't been watching that. So shows like that, and then also shows like The Arrow, The Flash, the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and then Supernatural are the 4 shows that I kind of watch regularly. And 3 of those shows on the CW make it sound like I'm a teenage girl, which Hulu has picked up on. And I get a lot of ads for either teenage girls or middle-aged housewives. Yeah. It's interesting being advertised like tampons. And surprisingly, like for a while, and this was actually before this point, and to be honest, I get a lot of like car commercials and stuff like that. Stuff that you just kind of generally
right, the standard stuff.
Yeah. For a while, and I think I talked about this before, but one thing that really surprised me is just how absolutely cruel some of these commercials are on playing on body issues.
Oh my God, right?
For like yogurt, especially, was really bad.
Yeah, it is.
I was like watching them and I'm like, I am ashamed to be watching this. This is so horrible. Like, you don't need to take this kind of abuse. I think I would call in a family counselor if I had a friend who was talking to me like this. I would be like, you need to stay out of my life for good. You're also not allowed around my children. You're drunk. Get out. With the way they presented body issues. But that's not what we're talking about here. So they just kind of finished up with all of these shows. So I'm still a little bit like hyped up about them. One, because they were just so good. All the shows that I've been watching this season have just been kind of knocking it out of the park for the most part. There have been weak moments in all of them, obviously. So I can't say that like every single moment of them has been the most wonderful thing in the world. But I'm gonna kind of give you my breakdown and kind of recommendations here. If you're looking for something to binge watch this summer or over the next couple weeks or something like that, here are 4 shows that you should probably sit down and watch. The first one, and probably the most surprising one to me, is The Flash. And if you don't know who The Flash is, it's about a man who runs around naked. No, it's about a man who,
oh, that's The Streak.
That's The Streak. My bad.
Yeah.
Sorry. I was thinking of the Ray Stevenson song.
Exactly.
No, The Flash, who is obviously the DC superhero who runs really fast. I mean, that's, kind of his thing. But it's his shtick. It's a thing he does. He's like Quicksilver, but older and faster. Actually, they provably faster in Marvel continuity, oddly enough. Apparently there was a whole thing where there was a speed race among like Marvel speedsters, and then randomly the Flash shows up.
Seriously?
He he appears in a bolt of light as an amnesiac. And, he's wearing the tatters of a red costume. He's got the blonde hair and a big blonde beard, like he's been
really?
traveling. And at the end of it, he wins this race that they're all having on this planet. And he's like, oh, I can't remember who I am. My name is something like Buried Allen or something like that.
Oh my God.
And, yeah, this is just a weird little bit of trivia that I picked up off Wikipedia that I was just like, that's so cool. That's so great. Anyway,
Marvel did that?
Marvel did that. That was in a Marvel comic.
That's impressive.
Anyway, the Flash, though, in this one is not blonde, but he is Barry Allen. And, it's a spin-off of the Arrow, basically.
Right.
The character is introduced there as just a normal guy, and then he goes back and he gets struck by lightning and gains his, super speed powers. And the entire story is about him searching for the murderer of his mother, who is, from the very first episode, probably introduced as like another speedster of some sort. It's a man in yellow. And, he has this, essentially a team of people working with him, ostensibly first as like healthcare, because after he's struck by lightning, he goes into a coma for, so many months. And when he wakes up, this, team of people is there to help him out. And they find out that there are, metahumans that have been created by this explosion that, centered around a, particle accelerator. So the entire premise of the story is the Flash learning to use his powers, trying to figure out who killed his mother, and, each week stopping various metahuman or, technology-based threats, throughout it. And then, of course, the normal stuff that you would expect from a drama on the CW, which is, sorting through his love life, trying to deal with family issues, that sort of thing. All of which works within the show. So none of it feels forced in. None of it feels out of place. It really does feel like a very complete, very fun world. And the really interesting thing is they really do not drop any balls. Through this entire thing, is you really feel by the end of it that you've gotten a complete story, and that, they obviously have stuff set up for season 2 and a continuation. But you really by the end feel like, okay, I am satisfied by the end of this story, which is kind of rare in a lot of kind of these primetime dramas that have popped up recently. So, and then the world itself is really fun, which is just very cool to experience, especially if you look at the show that it came off of, which is Arrow, which is very much dark and gritty. And I believe I've described in the past, and I still stand by this, which is the best Batman show on television currently.
It totally is, too. Yeah. He is totally Batman.
Mm-hmm. Well, rich billionaire who fights crime without special powers. Using an assortment
highly trained martial
arts, that sort of thing. And as you go through, you find out that he's been trained by various masters and stuff like that. Anyway, or not really masters so much, but he's been trained in the field by, very capable people.
Right.
No, but it's also a very good show. Just very different, very very much dark. And, one of the things they did some interesting stuff between the Flash and the Arrow, where they set up these episodes where there's actually crossovers throughout the Flash and the Arrow. And none of them are required, like, you might think like, oh, crossovers, those are required reading, to really get the most out of the shows. They're really not. There's certain moments where you'll miss something here and there if you haven't been watching one show over the other. But overall, they're not super necessary to watch one or the other, although I still highly recommend doing both. But one of the episodes highlights kind of the difference between the shows, where they have the crew of the Flash, all the characters basically coming over, and they're fighting in his world, and then people like start dying, and people start getting like, people close to them are threatened or kidnapped or killed, and they're kind of sitting there going like, they're shell shocked and like, this is not how it goes where we come from. Like, we were not expecting this. Oh God. Mm-hmm. Can we go home now? And, it's just great because that actually, kind of seems to be the running, theme between the show, and a really great way to think about them as well, is that, one is very much focused on kind of the fun aspect and hyping up the, the power and that sort of thing, and relying on the relationships to create drama rather than necessarily relying on, the threats to individual characters to create that sort of sense of danger, that pervades the show. But no, I highly recommend watching The Flash if you get a chance. I think it's probably one of the better of the kind of the four that I'm going to talk about, but the three superhero shows that I'm going to talk about. So since I've talked about The Flash, I'm going to jump over to the Arrow. Cause I think it's, like I said, the best Batman show on television currently.
You're right.
And, the Arrow is in its, I believe, I want to say third season now. And it's interesting because it's changed so much, since the original one, started, but hasn't changed all that much. So the original Arrow, like the first season, is okay, but it's not very good. Mm-hmm. Because this was kind of the first foray into this type of show. Really both for DC, I think, and then also for, the CW in general. They've obviously had other shows that are similar. They've been running Supernatural for 10 seasons, and they're going to go into 11th pretty soon here, which is very similar in terms of like tone and direction and things like that. But they very much kind of leaned back on more of like the teenage tropes, which is like, wealth and, showing that off and glamour and that sort of thing. And they've scaled that back quite a bit, going into the second season. And now in the third season, there's still some of it there, but it doesn't rely on it at all. And the show is better for that because it doesn't have to feel like ham-fisted attempts to, show off, pretty people in pretty clothes type of thing. So if you kind of gave it a pass on the first season and then the second season might have been kind of a little wonky for you, I think the third season is very good. And I still recommend watching the first two seasons because the other thing this show does is it does not hold your hand very much, through the mythology. So if you miss out on the first and second season, there's going to be a lot of relationships and emotions and, events that'll happen that you'll kind of be like, this seems like it's out of nowhere. Who's this guy? What's going on here? And it does some hand holding. Obviously most network shows have figured out that the pre-roll montage to show you who's who and, if they've appeared in a previous episode and what the stakes are. But it flashes by so quickly, you may not really notice it very well. The other thing that they've done that was really interesting is, again, those crossovers with The Flash and kind of bringing in elements from both shows into this season. And they've done just a really good job of that, where you don't, strictly speaking, need to know what happened on the other show that week or what happens in previous weeks. But, the experiences and the ride is a lot more fun when you do. know both sides of this, as it were. So, but yeah, the Arrow, really good this season. Not as good as the Flash, but still very good, and I think still very much worth binge watching. So I have to say, DC has just been doing a great job with their shows. And I still stand by, I think, what I've said in the past, which is DC does really great television shows, and Marvel does really great movies. And then they don't really cross over that well on the other side of it. But I'm going to talk about a little bit, one of the interesting things about the DC shows is, I was reading, an interview that they did like a Comic-Con or something like that with, one of the lead actors who, obviously was getting his cues from kind of the writers and stuff like that, is they were talking at one point, Constantine, which was an NPC show, which I don't believe is being picked up at all. So I don't think that has a future at this point. No. I could be wrong. Don't quote me on this because it's kind of fallen off of my radar.
Even Netflix didn't pick it up.
Yeah. So no, but he was talking about how there was a point where he was either Constantine was going to cross over onto Arrow and, the Constantine from the NBC show, and he was going to cross over onto Constantine. There was, it was actually like very much in the talks. Yeah. If Constantine had made it to a second season, that would have happened. And then they were also talking about how, like Supergirl is coming out, I think on CBS, if I remember right. And then, I think that's the only other DC show that's currently on the slate. That's not also a CW show. But they're talking about like how that could also be something that he could, that they could cross over with and even reference as the same universe. Whereas the movies are off limits for them. Like the movies and then the big three of, Superman, Wonder Woman, and Batman are all kind of off limits for the television universe. Mm-hmm. Even though, Supergirl exists within Superman's universe and they make it very explicit about in the trailer, but that's not what we're talking about.
Really?
Yes. They make constant references to her cousin.
Oh, right.
Who is Superman, and then Jimmy Olsen is also on Supergirl.
Oh, really?
As a friend of Superman. So.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so it's interesting. If you haven't seen the trailer, go watch it and you can see if it's your cup of tea or not. But it does have some really cool, I think, moments overall. But no, so, it's just interesting to see that kind of crossover and see that it's, it's very much, network independent for them as well. But it did really make me sad though that we wouldn't see Constantine on Arrow because I think that could have been a lot of fun. Just to see those two actors, play off each other for the most part. And those two characters play off each other, within the universe. So anyway, the third thing, and, speaking of in continuity, stuff would be Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And you're going to get an earful more about this as it relates to the Avengers at the end of the podcast, if you stick around for that part. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. has been really good this season. And it's really, in the second season has really found its feet more as a show, with the slight caveat that the integration with the Marvel Cinematic Universe as a whole has been really poor. Within it. So it's a great show to watch if you really like kind of that secret agent and some Marvel continuity type vibes. But it's a really horrible show to watch if you're expecting it to be super integrated into the Marvel universe and super important and really, gee golly, I'm really glad that these exist and that I watched this and the Avengers and my experience was so much richer for it. That's not going to happen.
Tell us how you really feel.
Yeah. Your experience watching Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and then watching the Avengers or vice versa, or going back to it and watching, is not going to be any richer and may in fact actually be worse. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Has been a good show on its own. And what's been really interesting is seeing the characters evolve from their kind of season one archetypes into kind of actual characters, including like the character Sky, who in the first season is just insufferable. Creator type, favoritism type character. Yeah. And she still is to a certain extent, because it is still very much centered around like, what is her destiny? What is happening with this character? And, but by the end of it, the characters who surround her are so great and so interesting and so unexpected in many ways that her character becomes really pivotal in explaining them. So it becomes really good because you just get all of these really great character actors running around, doing their thing, having fun. And, you just get really strong storylines that, you know, they do an okay job of foreshadowing some of the stuff that comes in, you know, the later movies and stuff like that. But like I said, it's not a deeply rich experience to watch it and then, you know, kind of watch those tie-ins as they go through. So it's a lot of fun. It's a fun ride, and I really recommend watching it, but temper your expectations for it, pretty heavily, in fact. And again, the ending will catch you off guard. I pretty much guarantee it. The season finale, you will really almost not see coming.
Wait a second, is it a cliffhanger?
No.
Oh, cool. We're wrapping shit up.
It's definitely not a cliffhanger. I mean, there's some stuff they leave some stuff for the next season, obviously, and set some things up for it. But they do resolve the storyline of the current season. And I do have to say, if there's one reason to watch season 2, it's an actor, Kyle MacLachlan, who played, if you ever watched, what's the show I'm thinking of? Kyle MacLachlan, excuse me. If you ever watched Twin Peaks, he played the main character, the lead detective, Dale Cooper, on that. And he is so amazing in this role. He is so much fun to watch. Just play around in this universe. So if nothing else, watch it to see that. To see that character and just see how that character like is both a complete monster and completely awesome at the same time.
Okay. I forget which guy is he?
He is, Kyle MacLachlan. He plays, Mr. Hyde.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Or Cal. Anyway, it was, just like I said, really good season, really good, chance to watch that. And, really kind of great character moments in there. And there is one place, and you'll have to go and listen to the spoiler section to catch what my reaction is, where I literally just face palmed, hit my head against a desk. Just absolutely terrible moment.
It almost ended tonight's podcast.
It did. It almost killed my enjoyment of the show. Like, it took all of the momentum they had built up right up to that point, and then just like, let's just switch directions here. And it was like, no, this is dumb. Why would we even, you know what? Screw this. We're taking a break. We'll be right back. And now YMHMI is happy to present the community events calendar for the week of June 1st.
Tuesday, roll up your sleeves, hands-on fish filleting at 5 p.m. at the Organic Market. Slice some fish. Wednesday, yoga for chronic pain at 5 p.m. at the Learning Center. Stretch those aches out. Thursday, the Knitting Circle, 4 p.m. at the Community Center. Stitch and pitch all night. Friday, the Lego Club, 3:30 at the library. Building with bricks. Saturday, the Farmers Market, all morning downtown. Eat the local foods.
Hey, we're back. We finished talking about TV shows just a second ago, and had The Witcher at the top of the show. I also realized I actually forgot to talk about the last show on the docket, which was Supernatural. And let's just, I'm going to speed through that really quick, which is, they just finished their 10th season, which is insane to think that that show's been running for 10 years because I try and forget at least 3 of those years that I watched. But they did some really great stuff this season to, one, renew my faith in the show that it's still pretty good. And I watched this season expecting it to be the last one. But apparently it's been renewed. It's going to start up a new one. And I am really excited for the next season. I am really excited for what I hope the next season is going to be. And I'm not going to reveal it because it would completely spoil the ending, I think. But I'm hoping a little bit more, hoping that Supernatural gets some more Lovecraft next year. I'm going to go with, I will finish with that.
Okay.
But yeah, if you enjoy that type of show, any of even the comic book shows, Supernatural is a great show to go and check out. And, you can probably skip season, 7, 8, and pretty much 9 as well. 9 is still okay though. And just jump straight into 10. You could even possibly skip season 6. 6, 7, and 8 are probably okay to skip. And then, 1 through 5 and then 9 and 10.
Okay.
Are pretty good. So
cool. Cause I pretty much lost interest going through season 7. So
yeah, season 1 through 5 are amazing because they tell a complete story.
Yeah. I burned through those seasons.
Yeah. It may as well kind of end at 5, to be perfectly honest. And I would be happy, but, 9 is okay. 10 is pretty good. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what they do with 11. And I really hope they end it at some point soon. But
like, there's a certain point when a show becomes like, for example, The Simpsons. How long has that been on now?
Long enough that one of the main actors just left.
Yeah.
Pretty recently here.
Like retired? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, not retired, kind of forced into retirement.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah,
but
there's some weirdness.
Yeah, but I mean, you look at a show like The Simpsons that's been going for 25 plus years, and I don't know really anybody who still watches it.
I certainly don't. I mean, I remember it, and I'm sure I would find some of it very funny if I watched it now. But it's not something that I would ever go looking for.
Yeah, it's basically it's done its rounds.
Mm-hmm. Although
over and over again.
So to jump back to Supernatural really quick, because I had to look up the actor's name because I can never remember. I remember who he is from other characters he's played, and he's a really great actor. If you ever watched like Psych, which is another good old show, he played Lassiter in that, who was the head detective. But the guy's name is Timothy Omenson, and I've seen him in a couple other things, and he's always he's incredibly good in everything I've seen him in so far. The booth at the end of the window or something like that. I can't remember. It's a show that was on Hulu for a little while. He is really good in that. But he comes into this show, actually in season 9, and, he reappears in this series and just is absolutely fun and wonderful to watch. So yeah, he plays, Cain of, Cain and Abel Cain. Yeah.
Holy crap. Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, he shows up in this season and he shows up in season 9, which is where he's kind of introduced and he's there for a little bit and he's great there. But then you get him in this season and he goes from calm to unhinged in this season. And the unhinged version he plays is just so great. Like if you watch it for nothing else, watch it for that episode. I had to go back and watch that episode like 3 times, and I'm not even kidding about that. It was just so wonderful to watch him work. So anyway, so we had another topic. So you've been telling me a little bit about like, the differences, you know, you've been playing The Witcher a lot lately. You have some strong opinions on like consoles versus PCs and stuff like that. So talk to me about this because I am off the Like once you hit hardware, I am like out.
Yeah. No, I have to say this is something I've been following for a while. I am definitely a member of that, PC master race. If you guys have ever seen that stuff,
please don't use that terminology.
Right. I especially shouldn't use that terminology. It's terminology that's going. It's a main.
Well, even the guy who used the terminology is like,
that's probably
Yahtzee.
A bad idea. Was it him?
It's Yahtzee who coined that term, and he's regretted it ever since because he
ran with it.
It was so tongue in cheek, and then he's like, later on, he's just like, I should never have used that because I was joking and I was making fun of you guys.
And it's like, and now people have just run with it.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
and
God.
It's just such a horrible term.
It is. Master race is just bad. But anyway, onto the getting away from racial slurs or genocidal insinuations.
Right, let's get away from those.
Let's get away from that. Basically, what I've been seeing is actually a trend in, and it's not just me. It's kind of an industry trend that's been tracked for an extended period of time, going all the way back to. It was especially prevalent in during the PS3, Xbox 360 era because you had. The PCs were becoming much better as opposed to like during the N64, Nintendo, on through GameCube, PlayStation 2 eras, where the PCs were still trying to catch up to the consoles. It's now come to the point where PCs have become the major gaming platform, and PCs have far beyond and outstripped, especially like in the last 15 years. Over the last 15 years, since Windows 98 came out, that's really when that kind of, when the graph really crossed. Mm-hmm. And PCs became the major hardware that gaming consoles are trying to catch up to, especially looking at the hardware that came out recently. The PS4 and the Xbox One, where they have actually converted to an x86 architecture as opposed to being their own independent architecture. Architecture, machine language, blah 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 blah. x86 is what you start off designing with Pentiums. Yeah. Anyway, I'm not going to.
Your Geek Spiral is not explaining it. It's just getting more.
It's getting more technical and more complex. I'm not going in any further into it. But basically, even the consoles have realized that it's pointless for them to design their own hardware and use their own machine languages when the PC has a much better one to begin with. Mm-hmm. And even to this point, Macs and Apple has done the same thing, where all of their operating systems and everything like that run on that type of architecture. Now I'm going, wow, that's a tangent. I'm going to circle back.
Right, graphics.
Graphics. Back to graphics as opposed to just hardware. Basically, what you see is usually around in the beginning, you have the newest consoles come out. Like when the PS3 and the Xbox 360 came out, they could easily match or exceed any kind of mid-range or enthusiast PC. And then easily within 5 years, the enthusiast PCs pass them up, and at about the 5-year mark, you have actually the mid-range PCs or the budget gaming PCs, ones that you can build for, approximately the same amount that you'd buy the console for. And then arguably you can do a lot more on PCs than you can on a console. Are actually passing up the current consoles. But games, in order to have that market appeal, being able to market them and remain profitable, since there's not as many people who are, buying PCs and whatnot, they are having to be designed and actually throttled back almost for the consoles, and basic kind of stymieing graphical progress.
Okay.
So what you're seeing, like right now we're in the beginning. We're still within the first year. I think it's been a year and a half since the Xbox One and the PS4 came out, somewhere along there. Yeah. So I mean, we're still in the very beginning where your enthusiast PC, where you're going to have to throw down about $1,000, about double the cost of one of these consoles, in order to get equivalent or higher for those. Now, here, the way hardware specs and everything like that go, within a couple years, your enthusiast PCs will actually most enthusiast PCs right now are either equivalent or higher end than the consoles, and you're already starting to see that scale back. Like, for example, Witcher 3 that just came out that we talked about earlier, that actually had to have its a large chunk of its development time delayed. It actually went from like October to May just for a large portion of kind of tweaking in order to actually scale it back for the consoles. And you can see that when you compare the current ultra graphics setting on a PC to what they actually showed at E3 a year and a half ago. Because it's actually even scaled back the exact same scene, scaled back between those two. So even on ultra settings on a PC, they had to scale it back in order to be able to fit it into a console market. So it's really what happens is basically kind of a stop in even PC game development once you hit a certain point of the current console generation. And truthfully, I'm actually very, it's starting to look up just because of certain consoles that are starting to come out. Like you actually have the Steam box that's coming out pretty soon. And that will basically be a PC running Steam in order to, and there's actually versions that are coming out that are modular, so you can just swap out parts easy without having to get out a Phillips screwdriver and so a buttload of zip ties. So I mean there is a good future down the line, but I mean we're still kind of stuck in that, and it'll be very prevalent here 5 years down the road once your mid-range PC will easily be able to top out will easily be able to run any ultra settings on any PC that the console would look at and cry. Because like even The Witcher, they're actually having to patch Witcher right now. The second patch that's coming out for The Witcher, aside from the day 0 patch or the day 1 patch, they're actually having to patch Witcher in order to scale it down even more for the consoles, because there are certain points where it's even being it's actually not even hitting the 30 frame rate, the 30 frames per second threshold on consoles. So it has to be scaled back quite significantly to go from an enthusiast PC running ultra settings to a console that is actually running more like high. Oh, wow.
That seems problematic.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a huge comparison there, and I mean, there are developers, and thank God for them. Like actually, even the developers of Dragon Age developed for PC and then scaled back to run on consoles, where you have because you see it in any PC game, you'll have graphical sliders. You won't have them on consoles because consoles. It's just like why Apple designs operating systems for their hardware, because it's a fixed hardware point. Mm-hmm. You don't have to adjust to it.
Right.
You know exactly how it'll run with certain settings. Mm-hmm. Whereas a PC, you have, graphical sliders. God knows every AAA game that comes out on the PC has a graphical slider, and it'll go from low, medium, high, ultra. Right. Every game. And you'll see if you compare an enthusiast PC running on ultra versus a console, if you use that slider to slide it up and down to find where it is, even right now with the consoles, the slider's usually around mid or high. Maybe around mid with like a few other things bumped up.
Right.
But again, like I said, so basically right now at a year and a half after release, we are seeing the best graphics that we will see for the next 7.
At least on these types of mass market games.
Right. Mass market games, the vast majority of games, because and actually it's really kind of, there's one thing that's actually, really hitting it is, the console markets. The online markets, like Xbox had theirs where you could, submit indie games and that sort of thing. So really, if you can design something that'll be graphical, that'll look good on a console, people will release it on a PC so it'll look good.
Right.
Because, I mean, there's no real comparison. If you keep that as the consoles as a baseline, your game will always look the best. Right.
No, I mean, that makes, it makes sense. And it also, I think, it sounds like it's, it's problematic in the sense that it stymies development for a few years. But I think for gamers in general, it might actually even be a good thing, is because one, it lets you slow down a little bit on, your PC upgrades and stuff like that without having to worry that you're going to get lost somewhere in the shuffle. I know. And then, probably the other nice thing about it is that you can, more reliably get a wide range of games without having to constantly be checking your minimum specs.
See, and that's,
and I think for consumers, it's actually a fairly good thing that happens. And it kind of sucks for, the enthusiast market and that sort of thing. But overall, it can probably be a
right. I can see for general market people who aren't going to be either like upgrading parts in their PC every like 2 or 3 years, or people that are people. If you want to buy a computer, truthfully, actually, that's one piece of advice I'll give somebody is, if you want to buy a gaming PC and you don't want me to build it, first of all, you're a bastard because you build your computer. Second, if you're going to buy a mass market PC, buy one that's it's either a high end right when the consoles come out, because then you'll be set for at least the next 5 to 10 years.
Right, if you're pushing the cutting edge of gaming.
Exactly. Or, wait like 3 or 4 years and buy an enthusiast or mid-range.
All right.
And then you will be able to max high ultra settings for PC games for a while.
Now, and the other thing to keep in mind is that you can always upgrade your computer as well.
Yes. Again, call me. See, you were smart. You let me build yours.
I was like, hey, I need a computer. Will you build it?
Yeah, and you've benefited significantly from me upgrading mine.
Yeah. I'm just not sure that we want all of our listeners calling you up and being like, "Hey, you don't know me? I listened to your show. Can you build me a computer?"
Yeah, no, I'm not putting my phone number on here. But if you have my phone number and you need a PC built.
If you want to ask him on Facebook or Twitter for computer specs or something like that, or suggestions, definitely hit him up, because he will talk to you for hours about it. And you can do what I do, which is yep, yep, sure, yeah. Let's pretend I know what you're talking about.
I totally actually have got to do that. Actually, a buddy of mine actually just told me, he's like, a friend of mine's came into some money, and he actually got a payout from the military, and he was just like, he wants to build a computer. Can you put up a spec list? And I was like, yeah, sure, I'll do that. I have, for some reason, just fantasy PC building, like going on Newegg and finding parts and shit. I enjoy that. So really, he's telling the truth. Hit me up on Facebook. I will find a PC to build for your budget.
So speaking of hitting us up in places, you can always find us over on Facebook at facebook.com/YMHMI. Feel free to post your computer related questions there, and Nate will answer them. Twitter, we're at YMHMI. And again, you can ask your I'm probably the one who checks it the most, but I will forward your questions on to Nate, and he will get back to you on those.
I have Twitter on my phone. I'll actually see it.
Oh,
now.
there you go. Okay, so he'll see them. And then you can also go and watch YouTube videos at youtube.com/you might have missed it. And catch our latest gaming videos there. And actually, I'm starting to debate putting the podcasts up there as well. Just with a little album cover art or something like that.
Right, yeah.
So on this episode, if you're listening right now and you're like, I have all the questions, and you're listening on YouTube, just go down to the comments and ask, and we will try to get back to you. Although we're not as good about those.
Not as good
so
about
if
the
you
YouTube
ask
one.
us, it might take us like 3 or 4 days to notice because we're scrubs and we don't understand how YouTube works. So, and by the way, if you've commented on our videos and we haven't gotten back to you, I'm sorry. We're bad at this.
Yeah.
But we love you. So
Watching.
you can catch us there. You can also watch us over on Twitch at twitch.tv/YMHMI. And I definitely recommend following the channel, not only because I really like that number to go up, but also because we stream infrequently enough. Yeah. That it's best to know when we go live on there. So
get the emails. You won't miss it.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. So yeah, thanks for listening, and we will catch you next week.
And before we
before we go,
spoilers coming after the theme. You have been warned.
Yes, you have like 5 or 6 seconds to shut it down and not get the Avengers spoiled for you. So thanks for listening. We will see you later. All right, so the theme music is over, and now it's time. We are going to talk about the Avengers. This is going to be full of spoilers.
Spoilerificness.
If you do not want the Avengers spoiled for you, and I am not kidding about spoilers, we talk about jokes and plot points and twists. So if you want to go into the Avengers without knowing any of these things, and I'm not even talking fresh-faced and ready and not having read reviews or something like that, this is full spoiler territory. So stop now. Walk away.
Yeah, we're not talking like skim the surface. We're talking deep in spoiler.
We reenact the movie.
Pretty
from
much.
Here on out.
It is a scene for scene reenactment from here on.
Yeah, so walk away. Just walk away. Unless you want to join us, in which case, enjoy.
Ah, cool, huh?
Yeah, it's a good movie.
Yeah, I laughed my ass off.
It was pretty good. Anyway, I think that'll be the discussion. Yeah, it was pretty good. All right, moving on.
All right, moving on. Yeah. It wasn't the action-packed awesomeness.
Oh, no, it was action-packed.
Oh, yeah.
It was packed front to back with action.
Yes, action and...
I don't think they could pack any more action into it.
No.
And I had made a comment when we were discussing it, like when you were talking about it, and I'm like, oh, and then Wash dies.
Yeah.
I didn't realize how close to the truth I was.
Yeah. with Quicksilver?
Yeah, and then Quicksilver dies, and it's like, oh, okay. He pulled a twist killing on us because he was setting up Hawkeye to be the one that dies.
Uh-huh.
And then of course,
like the entire movie like set Hawkeye up to die.
Exactly. Yeah,
like
introduce
this is his family,
the secret family that no one knew about.
Yeah, exactly.
Talks about all of his plans for the future, the things he wants to do. He has a kid coming.
I know.
He's got every single reason to be the one that dies.
I know. It's like every single trope for this character is going to die. But by the way, if we're not beating you over the face with this foreshadowing yet, you really should understand that we're beating you over the face with this foreshadowing.
I actually would have been disappointed. Like, I'm really glad. I'm not glad the Quicksilver's dead, but if he's dead, I guess would be.
This is the comic book.
Yeah, exactly. He can probably spring back up at any point. because, comic books.
Right.
No, but I would have been, I think, more disappointed had they killed him.
Had they killed Hawkeye?
Yeah, after all of that foreshadowing, if they had actually killed that character.
Actually done it and been like, well, that's predictable.
Yeah, I would have been like, oh, come on. Seriously? Fuck.
And then, well, they would have killed him and made like this huge emotional scene about it. And you'd have been like, I've known for like 2 hours that he was going to die.
Well, it's not even that. It would have actually been a bad place for an emotional scene. Like, I didn't feel sad when Quicksilver died because he hadn't been alive long enough for me to start to care about him. Like, right, I thought he was neat, and I was like, oh, that's too bad that he's dead. Mm-hmm. But you never got to know the character well enough to be like, oh, this is so sad. This is the saddest thing ever.
I know. You weren't really, like,
invested.
Devastated. Yeah, you weren't invested in him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But I think it does create, like, it makes the Scarlet Witch a more interesting character.
It does.
By getting rid of Quicksilver.
I can't wait because she's going to be in the Captain America
Civil War.
Yeah.
That should be pretty good.
Oh,
also, I love the foreshadowing of the relationship between her and Vision.
Yes. I went like crazy fanboy giddy when they showed like Captain America, Black Widow getting ready to train that little group in the hangar. Mm-hmm. I was like, that is the Avengers team from my childhood. That's West Coast. That's Avengers West Coast.
I did love that. And I love the cut. The cut was just such a great little joke there. At the end, when there's, he's announces Avengers and then cut.
yeah, exactly. It was like, yes.
Probably because the next word would be like, Avengers come together in a formation and group up around me.
Oh, I was good. Avengers, drop and give me 20.
Yeah. Avengers, break for lunch.
Yeah. Avengers, once around the compound.
Exactly. Avengers, is this a good name? Is that a thing? And maybe the Defenders? No, that's stupid. No one ever.
No, nobody wants to be the Defenders. Guardians? Do we want to be the Guardian? No, that's lame.
Guardians of the Gal.
No, not the
No.
Of this portion.
We'll assemble some names later.
Well, yeah, we'll name you guys later. West Coast. Fuck yeah.
I also, probably the highest point of the movie for me was obviously like the party. And all of the jokes going around there and just all of that stuff.
Oh.
And War Machine walking around trying to tell his
story to all the Avengers. Yeah. And then when he finally finds that like noob group off to the side and he's like, yeah, these are my people.
It's not even like, yeah, these are my people. He's like, damn straight, this is a good story.
Yeah. Like, you guys are all just jaded and you know it.
I did love the tying all those characters in and giving them all like business to do at the end of the movie, not just pulling in War Machine just because, it's funny to have him in there and playing off like Tony Stark and that sort of thing, but also having him in there because it's just he shows up at the end of the movie. He's kind of he's Chekhov's superhero, as it were, as you show him there. And, at some point, the War Machine has to fire. Mm-hmm. And it really surprised me when they used him because I was thinking at the end there, I'm like, what else can they throw in here? What's the next thing they can throw at me to really just, push this over the edge? Because of all the action sequences in there, it could have gotten really, really stale. And especially at that end part where they're evacuating the city and then all of a sudden the city's floating and it's like, oh, that's cool. Okay. That's pretty awesome. And then, oh, well, we have to drop the city, but there's no way to do it. Oh, crap. And, we have to defend this point. So that's kind of neat. And then, the whole like Hawkeye and Scarlet Witch conversation, which is just, we're being attacked by an army of robots on a city that's floating and I have a bow and arrow. None of this makes sense.
I love that.
Just hanging the lampshade on it. And, so that's a great moment. And then they go out and, she picks it up and then finally, well, crap, we're going to have to destroy everything. This is bad. And then the helicarrier shows up and, that's like, oh, that's really cool. Okay. That's a cool moment. Now they've got a way to deal with this. And so suddenly it becomes an evacuation plus dealing with that point plus all of this stuff. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, how do you deal with the robots attacking this? Oh, War Machine. Oh, that's cool. Okay.
Let's get a guy with guns all over him.
Exactly. And, it's like it keeps upping the cool factor until, you hit that climactic kind of moment of cool where you've got, the Scarlet Witch just, unleashing hell at that point. Yeah. You've got all of the other Avengers just fighting and, evacuating people. And you've got, the helicarrier loading people on. You've got War Machine, shooting things down in the air. You've got all of this stuff going on. And then the downward spiral starts to happen where, the action starts to go lower and lower, but it lets you down in this, this really, spectacular way.
It was nicely gradual. I will say that.
Yeah, there were no sudden turns, but they were, it was constantly just shifting up the speed. So it was it was really well constructed. Yeah. And I only appreciated it in hindsight now, but, obviously I appreciated what was going on because there are definitely action sequences that can be done really badly.
Oh, yeah.
Where it's, they don't have
quick cuts. Where they have
quick cuts going on. Even some of the Matrix stuff, especially the later movies comes to mind.
Yeah.
Where it's, constantly
and you're just like, oh my God, another fight. Jesus Christ. Yeah.
You just get exhausted.
Yeah, it's just wrap up the story.
Not any good. Highlander is another good example of bad fight sequences. Which is, a show and a movie franchise that I otherwise love the lore of and stuff like that. But it was just terrible action.
Yeah. I have two scenes in that movie that I will say are that I literally burst out in the middle of embarrassingly in the middle of the theater laughing. The first one was right off the bat when Tony finally gets through the shield, gets into that room. We need to have a chat, takes them all out and he's like, good talk, everyone. And you just hear the one guy, no, it wasn't.
Yeah.
That was amazing.
That got everyone in the theater. I was in a very unpacked theater. There were probably 10 people total at the showing I was at. And everyone. That got everyone.
Oh, that was awesome. That was just amazing.
I'm like, did they seriously just pull a joke like that? That's so great.
I know, it was awesome. That was literally, no, it wasn't. Oh my God.
What? What just happened there?
Exactly. It's like, where did that guy come from?
That whole thing was just hilarious.
Yeah. Okay. And actually I have to add a third one now. So the second one is how do we trust this guy? Can we really trust him? And then he picks up the hammer and hands it to Thor.
Yeah.
And Thor's like, okay. Actually, now a fourth scene that just came to mind. No. This movie is filled with those scenes.
There is.
That is amazing. Where he just hands the hammer to him and they're all like, Thor looks just mortified that Vision picked up and handed him the hammer.
Yeah.
But then he just takes it from him and is like, okay, let's do this. We'll address that later.
Which they never do, technically.
No, there was a conversation at the end between Tony, Thor, and
about whether or not an elevator can lift
the elevator. Yes, that is the third scene I was thinking of.
And basically comparing the Vision is a machine, therefore
not technically exactly. But it's but he's a sentient machine. So, where did you draw the line?
Yeah, no, they had a lot of fun with Thor's hammer, to be honest.
Oh, yeah.
The scene with Quicksilver when he sees the hammer flying past, he's like, ooh, and goes to grab it, and then just
gets launched. And just goes flying, and
there were
that's
so
not what I
many
expected.
great canonical moments like that where it's they just did not forget, and then made a point of showing it again. So,
or when the other one is the party scene, because the after party
Yeah,
where they're
that was in
all
all the
trying to
trailers,
lift.
though, so that wasn't like unexpected to me. That was like, oh, okay. I remember the scene, but it's fun to see it.
Oh yeah. When like Captain America like grabs onto the hammer and starts pulling, and you hear it like slide along the glass a little,
and his
Thor
face just goes.
And yeah, Thor's face just drops.
Yeah,
Like, oh shit, what?
Apparently, in the comic books, at one point, Captain America did wield Thor's hammer,
Yes.
or became Thor, since
Yeah,
Thor
if you
was
wield-
not a Thor was a person, but he was actually more of like he was an incarnate, I guess would be the best way to put it. He was an overlay over somebody else.
Mhm.
Because right now there's a female Thor who is Jane Foster,
I know, right?
which is pretty cool.
I know. I like that. I finally found out who it was, and I was like,
Well, everyone did pretty recently,
Right.
So,
yeah,
yeah,
well,
they hadn't revealed it. So
yeah, you find out it's Jane Foster, and you're like, Jane Foster.
Extra spoilers.
Cool. Oh
if you're
yeah,
a comic book
yeah.
fan, which I don't
If
think
you
either
guys,
of us
you know
are,
what?
but-
If you're not into spoilers, or you don't know all the information about all the Marvel shit happening right now, you should have stopped listening a while ago.
we gave you ample warning. So
Yeah, you had plenty.
But no, I mean, all in all, it was a great movie. The one thing I do have to comment though is that like a lot of people are like, well, nothing happened in it. And I have to completely agree. Nothing happened in it. You know, things, there were consequences and things rearranged at the end.
Right.
But ultimately within the movie, nothing happened.
Well,
Like there were no consequences.
for this
anything.
Avengers, because I mean, really, what they're working up towards, like this Avengers, is more like, like Iron Man 2 was. You know, it's really just leading to what happens next.
Right.
This
One-
Avengers,
Iron Man 2 set up War Machine. It set up a lot of stuff.
right,
And it really
that's-
restructured how like Stark Industries worked and stuff like that. So things happened in the movie,
right.
and there were,
And-
consequences that reached into it. And you're right. No, I know where you're going with this, but so I'll let you continue.
Okay, so there were really actually 4 things that this brought in. Number 4 again. There are 4 things. You had to introduce a couple characters. You introduced Vision and Scarlet Witch. You had to bring them in. Unveil the 4th Infinity Stone.
Right.
Set up a new location for the Avengers, and start a huge, this is what happens when people have powers thing.
Right. Start people thinking on that line. Although
Exactly.
it kind of disappointed me that they didn't, and I talked about this a little bit earlier, probably with, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which is they've done such a great job of, kind of creating this world building that was going on in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.,
Mm-hmm.
but then they just kind of like hand wave it away, and nothing like, I watched all the episodes of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. all the way up through it, including kind of the aftermath of like the point in the show where the Avengers happens and then the next episode happens.
Right, I
It's
heard that.
supposed to
I heard
be.
that actually kind of threw Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. on its head.
Not really in any way, shape, or form.
Oh, really?
It was probably the worst, like, I said this earlier, is it was the worst sort of writing that I've seen, which
wow.
is, they kind of hand wave this away because they have this conflict going on between, Coulson and then this kind of, shadow shield, that kind of appears and, takes things over.
Run by
And,
the
there's-
Admiral.
Say again.
Run by Admiral. Oh, God. Adama.
Yeah, run by Admiral Adama. But they're in this conflict and there's just not a lot of discussion going on, and you can expect that it would be, something that would take a while to resolve and really, take a while for them to accept Coulson as director and them as, kind of the agency, advisors, as it were, and to kind of create the dichotomy. And it would take a couple episodes to do that, and there'd be emotional journeys and talks and things like that would happen. But literally you go from like one episode where this conflict is coming to a head, and then the next episode where they're like, oh, well, we're old pals now. So because, your whole secret plan was the airship. Like you as the director of S.H.I.E.L.D. were helping Fury with this airship and, help save the world. So we're okay with you.
Basically, facepalm.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just like, let's hand wave all this conflict away and move on. And it was just, I watched that and my jaw just kind of went like to the floor because I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? this is dumb.
Right. But
This is dumb as shit. And then I watched the movie thinking like, okay, maybe there's something in here that will explain this hand wave away. But there's not. There was no point in having Coulson working on this because it didn't matter where the air carrier came from because it was attributed to Fury in the movie. Just Fury in general. Like there's no mention of S.H.I.E.L.D. being a group still under somebody else's control. There's no mention of any of this.
Right.
You know, Maria Hill is working for the Avengers. She's not really working for S.H.I.E.L.D. or she's working for the Avengers and Nick Fury. So there's no explanation within that. So I was kind of disappointed by that when the movie came through. And I was like, I love this movie and there's no mention of that. And then the other part of it is that they attribute the abilities of Quicksilver and the Scarlet Witch to the Mind Gem, not to the stuff they set up for the Inhumans in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which is the Terrigen crystals and that sort of thing. And if they're setting up these larger mythology events for later, you know, they know where Quicksilver and the Scarlet Witch come from. You know, if that's the source of their powers, you know, and not like they say the Mind Gem, you know, if that is the source of their powers and they are in fact Inhumans, then they missed this really great opportunity to, you know, drop in a couple world building hints, within the Avengers movie and tie it even a little bit more back into the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. continuity.
Okay.
But
so
as it stands, you know, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. may as well not exist within the Marvel universe because nothing is coming in.
Okay, so that's your main gripe against the Avengers is it doesn't tie into S.H.I.E.L.D. at all.
It's my main gripe against the Marvel Universe continuity and having that TV show is that they're not really using it particularly effectively, or they're not using it in a way that makes the TV show an interesting thing to watch.
Oh, they're using it as a completely reactionary stance. Basically, like this happens,
and then not even like it's not even actionary because the stuff they do doesn't matter.
Right.
Like there's no reaction or action. They respond to the events, but the events don't actually affect them either.
Well, the Inhumans thing is supposed to play out later.
Right, but the openings of it are supposed to, you know, like the Inhumans proper, which is, you know, the larger like group, I think is going to come in later. But the whole people with powers thing, that sort of thing, if that doesn't play out in the next Captain America as a basis from the stuff they set up at Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., I'm going to be super disappointed. At that point, I'm just going to be like, they really need to just drop the TV shows at all. Because they're not tying into the movies, or they just need to do what DC has done and basically say that, you know, the movies are their own continuity, the TV shows are their own continuity.
Right.
For example.
Right. Well, and see that's one of the things is because DC originally was talking about doing the whole like Justice League thing with, you know, the Flash, Green Arrow, and Superman and Batman and Wonder Woman, but So you're saying DC has finally said, no, that's never going to happen. We're never going to cross over this shit.
Yeah, that's their official stance at this point, is that the movies and TV shows are separate continuities, but the TV shows are network independent continuities, which means that like TV shows that are on NBC and the CW and CBS and all of those are supposed to be a shared world. Because the lead actor for Arrow was talking on, and actually I'll probably cover this in the TV stuff. So we already talked about this. Yeah. So I'll skip over this and anyway, let's finish the Avengers thing here. I think that's pretty much all that has to be said though, is that I'm really hoping that the TV stuff does tie back into the Avengers a little bit more, and I'll be really interested to see what happens with Captain America and the Civil War movie. Yeah, I can't wait to see that, especially considering that his contract is out. Yeah, which might be part of the reason why they're doing it is, you know, Captain America, you know, in comic book canon dies during the Civil War. Yeah. Yeah, he's shot by a sniper. So it'll be interesting though, because I've heard talk about Spider-Man being in the Civil War movie. Spider-Man. So I am kind of, and by kind of I mean like super hyper awesome excited for that to happen. Yeah, no, that's actually been confirmed. Has it? Okay. Yes, Spider-Man will be. I'm really excited. And I kind of wish Sony would let go of their like death grip of the IP rights and just play nice with Marvel.
That's what they did.
Well, they're playing nice with like Spider-Man and stuff like that, but it breaks my heart that the X-Men are not part of that, because the X-Men were the group that like I grew up with.
Yes.
And now they're actually making in the comics. And again, I don't really read the comics, so I don't know why this pisses me off so much. But within the comics, they're actually de-emphasizing the X-Men in the greater Marvel world. They're relegating them to basically their own universe.
Right. Well, that's been going on for, God, a long time, actually.
It's just too bad to me. And I'm always going to be sad that I will not get to see, Captain America and Wolverine fight in the movies. Get Captain America and Wolverine to fight, or the Avengers versus the X-Men or something like that.
Or the actual like Avengers from like a couple years ago. Just a couple years ago. Do you know who the Avengers were a couple years ago?
No, I haven't read a comic book since the early 90s.
It was Captain America, Falcon, Hulk, Spider-Man, Wolverine, Beast.
I knew Beast was an Avenger. He's been an Avenger for a long time.
Yeah, Wolverine and Beast are part of both groups. They're in both groups.
Yeah. I remember, like I said, I haven't read a comic book since the 90s. In the 80s, the Beast was an Avenger and was not actually part of the X-Men proper. He was actually an Avenger.
Right. And actually
and I know Wolverine wasn't during that time.
Yeah, a large portion of the 90s, there weren't an X-Men. They were still going through their whole X Factor.
Well, there was in the 90s, because they still had the comic books in the 90s for X-Men and stuff like that. It's just they focused more on like solo stories. And I mean, the X-Men have always kind of been one of those like, we're together, we're not together, we're together, we're not together.
They are kind of
we're together, we're hunting each other. We're all dead, we're all not dead. That sort of thing. And that could actually really describe every single comic book team.
I know, I was about to say, that is
like
pretty much
the Fantastic Four.
Oh my God, the Fantastic Four, yeah. See, that's one property I wish they got back.
Sure.
They could do stuff with the Fantastic Four.
I think the only time that I've missed the Fantastic Four, and I'll go back into the Avengers movie here just to put a little bow on this conversation, is the only time that I missed the Fantastic Four is when Bruce Banner and Tony Stark were in the lab going over the Ultron stuff and like doing the whole like, studying and coding and like pulling all-nighters montage. In the middle of that. And the only thing that was going through my mind through part of that, other than like, this is so cool, this is such a great montage, I love this, was, oh my God, imagine if they had Reed Richards in there.
Yes! Yes! Oh my God, imagine that.
Yeah, exactly. Or called him in for a consult or something like that.
Yeah, call in.
My little mind would have just gone,
bring in Reed Richards and Beast.
Yeah, exactly.
Reed Richards, Hank McCoy, Tony Stark, and Bruce Banner all doing a science project together. My little nerd brain would implode upon itself with joy.
Exactly. Anyway, thanks for listening. This is the end of spoilers. So you can go on listening to the rest of it, I guess.
Well, you can already.
Wait, we're at the end. So
yeah.